Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. A warm welcome to anyone who's new to this channel. If you are new and you would like more information, I'm going to post a link, and there'll be a link below. Hi, Jason. Hi, Nicola. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's. Wow. Why do I say that so often? Divine. I like to start a lot of my videos that way. Well, Bruno Groening, and for anyone who's new, this channel is devoted to his teachings. Those teachings are very universal. Bruno Groening said, I call you to the great turnaround, the great reversal, the great change. And fundamentally, that there's different ways of saying what the great change is. I like to describe it as radical change. That's how I translate the German word. And so there's different ways to verbalize, well, okay, he's calling us to something radical, to a big change, but what is that big change? One of my favorite ways to express that, which he himself said, back to nature, back to God, back to the belief in the good in human beings. So, back to nature, living in harmony with nature, recognizing our absolute need and dependence upon nature as human beings. Back to God, and that's a deep topic. That's just a very short summary. Back to God. Very deep topic. Fundamentally, Bruno Groening called us back to trust and faith in God. Not so much faith in a particular idea, but trusting in God and relying on God and recognizing our need for God. And then back to the belief in the good in human beings. So what's the predominant view of human beings today? Like if you ask someone, what's a human being? Or if you said, what is the nature of human beings? Are human beings inherently good or evil or neutral? I don't, I haven't read any studies on it. Like what's the most popular opinion? I would bet that most people would say that human beings are neutral, that life sort of inscribes goodness and badness on them. Or they would say human beings are inherently bad, selfish, greedy. I'm just guessing. I don't know. If anyone's aware of a study, please let me know. But certainly it's a predominant view. It's a very widespread view. How many people would say that human beings are inherently good? I wouldn't have said that before I found Bruno Groening's teachings. I thought we had goodness within us, or that was part of us. But Bruno was adamant. We are inherently good. So I'm guessing most people would hesitate with the idea that human beings are fundamentally good. But Bruno Groening takes it another level. He said that human beings are fundamentally, at their foundation, at the root, and I'm talking about you and me and your best friend and the person that you hate. Hopefully none of us, we all have moments maybe of feeling anger, but every human being at the root, the absolute root. Bruno Groening didn't just say they're good. Bruno Groening said they're divine. For us as human beings, for us to think this way about ourselves and others, that's a radical change. That's a great reversal. That's a great turnaround. And so I want to invite everyone here today or tomorrow, the next time you see another person, just hold the thought, this person's divine, has a piece of God in them. Or look for it. Look for the goodness, the divinity. We have the opportunity to do this all day long because we see people all day long. I personally currently am not able to do it all day long, but I'm doing it more and more. And it feels so good to see the good, to look for the good, to look for the divine. It's a wonderful, wonderful practice. So one of the other things that Bruno Groening said is that our soul is like a receiving device for divine energy. And that we can literally take in the power of God into ourselves for help and healing. We're going to do that now. Please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards, back in a relaxed, upright position. Then close your eyes. Come into the present moment, letting go of what's happened today, letting go of what we think is going to happen, our thoughts about the future, coming into the present, and then having the will, the intention to receive, to take in divine life energy and observe your body, noticing what you feel while having that intention. So there's going to be a little silent time, taking in the good. Noticing what you feel. So, Bruno Groening called us to the great reversal. And the primary, I don't want to say the only, but the primary facets of that are back to nature, back to God, back to the belief and the goodness in human beings. So here we are. It's New Year's Day, at least the time of making this video. Let's make a New Year's resolution. Or I am, and please find your own version of it. Let's decide that we're going to take a stand for the truth. What I'm convinced of is the truth. If you're not convinced of it, then this wouldn't necessarily be appropriate. I'm utterly convinced that the good will prevail, that every problem will be solved, everything will be healed. The timing, that part I don't know. So my New Year's resolution is to take that stand. If I have a problem or when facing a problem, the issue is not if it will be solved or not. The issue is when. And that's not really an issue. It's more something I'm curious about. So really taking a fundamental stance for a very fundamental worldview. It's a very radical worldview to believe that every problem will be solved. Not solved today, but that'd be cool. Please God, please Bruno, please Jesus. Every problem solved today. I'm open to that. That'd be nice. The way I think of it is God's written the final chapter. I don't want to say final, but at least in one book. I think the book's going forever. But the final chapter is everyone lives happily forever after. Everyone. How we get there, it's my understanding that's where free will comes in, and how long it takes us as individuals and us as a group. So see if that fits for you as a good New Year's resolution. In essence, it's kind of like making a decision. And then sticking by it. And, unless your faith is perfect, doubts will arise. But coming back, bringing yourself back to that truth. See if that resonates for you as a worthwhile New Year's resolution. It can seem impossible, certainly from a human point of view, that every problem will be solved. But keep in mind, what we're talking about is God, infinite, beyond our comprehension, beyond our mind, beyond the limits of our human mind. And then another interesting question is, what part are we going to play in this? What's our part? My part seems to be making YouTube videos. It brings me joy and it seems to help others, so that's part of my part. Doesn't mean everyone should or will. I don't believe we're called to imitate Bruno Groening or imitate Jesus, or I do think we are meant to is an odd word, but the example they set of surrender and following God and faith, that I believe is the universal path we're all on. And Bruno Groening said, that the path of Christ, he said eventually we all must follow the path of Christ. Doesn't mean we're all going to get up and preach or all be crucified. My understanding is that it means that we all eventually need to surrender to God and follow God, be guided by God. It's very much my pleasure, Jason. One spiritual book, a spiritual quote I really like is, "To teach is to learn." That we don't. And I can't. If you want to learn the teachings of Bruno Groening or anything, teach it to someone else. Teach someone how to tune in, and your tuning in will go way up. Aw, thanks, Germana. I couldn't do it without an audience. I mean, I think I would. If no one watched, I still might do it because it feels so good to speak the truth. It feels so good. Thank you both. So let's take in some goodness, or hopefully continue taking in goodness. Observing the body, noticing what you feel. One of the most difficult parts of this path is surrender. especially when it comes to healing. The timing of a healing is not up to us. A human being cannot make a healing happen. Bruno Groening said, I think he said almost verbatim that a human being cannot heal. Now, we can pass along healing energy, but we can't even heal another person. We can help, but healing is up to God. Some healings happen in a second with almost no effort. Some healings take years. I've shared many times that I had a number of healings in rapid succession. And then I had about 8 or 9 major illnesses that brought me to this work. And 8 of them in about 9 months. But that other one took almost 5 years. A dependence on sleeping pills. And it was a process. Like I would get off it and then I would need to go back on. Like it took I slowly decreased it, and then I was able to get off it for a while, and then I had to get back on it, and I got off it it was very bumpy. And Bruno spoke about this, about that when that's the case, there's a lesson to be learned, or there's a certain spiritual maturity that hasn't happened yet. And he was even quite blunt. He said, he actually once said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, with a snap of my finger, I could heal every person in this city. He said, but wouldn't that be a tragedy? Because then they would go about doing more evil. Meaning, if someone has an illness, not always, but almost always, Bruno cited some exceptions, it's because they've done evil. And paradoxically, the illness slows them down and calls them to order. And so if, according to Bruno Groening, like if a whole city, like if all the world was just lifted of all illnesses, it actually would be a bad thing. If people weren't willing to turn around, because then they'd just go do more evil. So it can be a bitter pill to swallow. But Bruno was very adamant that we bring evil onto all of our problems, we bring onto ourselves. Or as it's written in the Bible, as you sow, so shall you reap. He did say that there were some exceptions, that sometimes an illness is to facilitate learning. Sometimes it's a reparation, he said. So I'm going to begin wrapping up. I'd like to thank everyone for joining in. Thanks for saying hi, Nicola, Jason, and Germana. We looked at what is meant by the great turnaround. Back to God, back to nature, back to God, back to the belief in the goodness in human beings. And what it means, the goodness in human beings. And Bruno said it, the divinity in human beings. Then we looked at having the intention to look for that in other people, much less in ourselves, to look for the goodness. And a possible New Year's resolution to take on the conviction that the good will prevail, that all problems will be solved. Recognizing that it's not like we just decide that once and we're done, that then there will be doubts and challenges and we'll veer off, but coming back to that's what I consider absolute faith. And then looking at how this relates to healing, that we're not in charge of healing. We are in charge of doing our part, but the timing is not up to us. And the healing ultimately is not, the act of healing isn't up to us. Maybe the best we can do is prepare the soil. metaphorically speaking, but we don't make the flower grow. With flower, with a in this analogy, a flower being an actual healing, that's up to God. But that's not to discount our part or how much we can help another by passing this energy along. Just being very clear that God's in charge and we're not. So let's sit for another minute or two, asking for any particular situations. Noticing what you feel. Asking this energy to shower and bless. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. Thanks forever. I feel the same way. Much gratitude to everyone who attends these gatherings. Take care, dear ones. I'll catch you soon. Much love. And Happy New Year!